This is CBN NewsWatch.
It is Friday, July 10th. I'm Ephraim Graham. We want to begin this half hour with a wave of protests calling for an end to racism and police brutality. They've also led to unintended results. Our Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell reports now some Jewish leaders say these demonstrations have taken a turn toward anti-Semitism.
On July 1st, these New York City demonstrators verbally attacked the police.
The police that are around us are not our friends, they are our enemy.
Then they turned to the Jews.
The European Jews who occupy, slaughter, and continue to force millions of Palestinians onto their killing fields called refugee and concentration camps.
And the slurs spread beyond the Big Apple to the nation's capital.
Israel, we know you murder children too!
Rabbi Abraham Cooper sees an explosion of anti-Semitic and anti-Israel lies.
Fundamentally, the most troubling is the lie that Israel somehow was involved in training the bad apples of the police in the United States.
An accusation made by Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan toward Israel in a speech on July 4th.
You mayors, you governors, stop your police from going to Israel to learn how to kill better.
And so 500,000 people heard us screed where Jews were called the devil and we're linked to coronavirus, and off we go to the races. It reminds me of a statement made, I think around 100 years ago, by Winston Churchill, who said that, a lie can travel halfway around the world before the truth gets its pants on.
Cooper says another current accusation is Jewish white privilege. Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver Deshaun Jackson apologized for posting an anti-Semitic message on Instagram, saying white Jews will blackmail America, they will extort America, and incorrectly attributing the quote to Hitler.
To me, it's especially outrageous because apparently for 6 million Jews during the Holocaust, they weren't white enough to avoid being mass murdered by the Nazis, who were the ultimate supremacists. And then seeing how social media and a very politicized journalism situation means that some of the most vile, disgusting, and baseless ideas are elevated to, discussion.
Rabbi Cooper wrote recently about the importance of the Jewish community and African-American leaders working together for the common good.
I think that everyone identifies with the concept of Black Lives Matter. African Americans are still battling racism, but as we see, some of the forces unleashed also have led to looting, violence, the attempt to tear down American history.
Cooper says that relationship can help counter speeches like Farrakhan's that become fueled by social media and injected into the culture and society. Cooper maintains coalitions must come together in this national discussion in order to fight both racism and anti-Semitism.
What's really important for our center, for the American Jewish community and beyond is we can't defeat anti-Semitism without friends and allies. Find common cause where we can, and I believe there's a lot of common ground that we can in fighting anti-Semitism and racism going forward. I think what Farrakhan and the others want to do is they want to isolate and they want to bully the Jewish community. We're not going to let them do that.
And to continue this conversation, Chris Mitchell joins us now. So, Chris, what is the response of Israeli police when it comes to accusations they are training the U.S. police on how to kill?
Well, Ephraim, Mickey Rosenfeld, who's the spokesman for the National Police, denies this. This comes from actually many police departments come over here, but they're not coming over here for arrest techniques. They're coming over here for counterterrorism. And that's really been happening ever since 9/11. They really see Israel as the premier counterterrorism police force. And so that's what it is. Some people see these accusations and lies against Israel as two things. First of all, a way to defame Israel, and two, to separate these police departments, whether it's New York City, it has been Minneapolis as well, to separate the two. It really, when the police do come over here, they get sort of the premier training in counterterrorism here in Israel.
And of course, the other big headline in the world, of course, today is the coronavirus. What's the latest there in Israel?
Well, it's kind of disappointing and discouraging, actually, for many Israelis. More restrictions right now. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said, actually, they reopened the economy too soon. There's been a resurgence of coronavirus cases. And it's really a critical point, Ephraim, right now for the economy and personal businesses. I'll give you a personal example. We know a restaurant that not too far from here in the Bureau, he's actually closed down. He just really can't reopen. Part of his business is based on tourism, which is basically shut down. So really, it's a critical point for many of these personal businesses and the lives of many Israelis, just like in the U.S.
So what's ahead on Jerusalem Dateline this week?
Well, Ephraim, we're going to follow up on the Iran situation. You know, there's been a lot of mysterious explosions within Iran against their missile and nuclear facilities. We'll have that. We'll have an extended interview with Rabbi Cooper that you've seen here in our story. We have a story about the Mossad, and that relates to what's happening in Iran right now. Many people see the Mossad's role is trying to curb Iran's nuclear program. And also, we're going to have a story, actually a very encouraging story, about Christian Zionists who actually refurbished the windmill, an iconic Jerusalem windmill that's actually right across the street from the Bureau. And that's all part of this week's Jerusalem Dateline. We think it'll be a great show.
Looking forward to that. I want to remind you at home that you can watch Jerusalem Dateline right here on the CBN News Channel. It begins at 9:30 Eastern this evening. Back here at home, the United States Supreme Court saved 2 cases involving the limit of presidential powers to conclude what's been a busy term. In separate 7-2 rulings, the court handed the president a temporary victory and a stinging rebuke. CBN's Paul Strand is on the story.
As part of an investigation into some of Trump's financial dealings, the Manhattan DA went after the president's tax returns and other records. And the court ruled that's probably okay, even if the person in question sits in the White House. Writing for the majority, Chief Justice Roberts wrote, "In our judicial system, the public has a right to every man's evidence. Since the earliest days of the Republic, every man has included the President of the United States." But Justice Alito dissented, writing, "Never before has a local prosecutor subpoenaed the records of a sitting president. The court's decision threatens to impair the functioning of the presidency and provides no real protection against the use of the subpoena power by the nation's 2,300-plus local prosecutors." House Speaker Nancy Pelosi hailed today's decision.
Careful reading of the Supreme Court ruling related to the president's financial records is not good news for President Trump.
The president tweeted his reaction. "The Supreme Court sends case back to lower court, arguments to continue. This is all a political prosecution. I won the Mueller witch hunt and others, and now I have to keep fighting in a politically corrupt New York. Not fair to this presidency or administration. Courts in the past have given broad deference, but not me." In the second ruling, the court said no to congressional Democrats wanting the president's financial records for their investigations. The justices worried about the separation of powers. And Roberts wrote, "This case is different. Here the president's information is sought not by prosecutors or private parties in connection with a particular judicial proceeding, but by committees of Congress that have set forth broad legislative objectives." Justice Thomas would have gone further than his fellow justices, saying, "Congress's legislative powers do not authorize it to engage in a nationwide inquisition with whatever resources it chooses to appropriate for itself."
Where the president stands is he still maintains his initial position, and he agrees with Justice Thomas in the dissent, who said the demands on the president's time and the importance of his tasks are extraordinary, and the office of the president cannot be delegated to subordinates. A subpoena imposes both demands on the president's limited time and a burden.
In both rulings, it's directed the cases go back to lower courts. Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
The World Health Organization, two World Health Organization experts are heading to China to lay the groundwork for a larger mission to investigate the origins of the coronavirus pandemic. They'll meet with Chinese counterparts in Beijing to set the scope and terms of reference for a WHO-led international mission aimed at learning how the virus jumped from animals to humans. The mission is sensitive because the U.S. has moved to cut ties with the WHO over allegations it mishandled the outbreak and is biased toward China. Racial tension in the wake of George Floyd's death spread to one of the nation's largest Christian colleges, Liberty University, both on campus and among its alumni. Jennifer Wishon spoke with some Liberty grads about their concerns.
For a number of African-American Liberty graduates, the quest for racial justice is hitting close to home.
I'm a proud Liberty grad and loved going to school there. And it was heartbreaking. I mean, it was one of those kind of things you feel like you have been sucker punched.
He's talking about this tweet school president Jerry Falwell Jr. posted just days after George Floyd was killed. In a comment about Governor Ralph Northam's mask mandate, Falwell displayed a controversial photo from Northam's medical school yearbook page, which notoriously memorializes students dressed in blackface and a Ku Klux Klan uniform. That night, Maura couldn't sleep.
Because, you know, when I look at my grandfather and grandmother and mom and dad, who all were petrified of the KKK and blackface stuff, I had to really do some deep soul searching.
He helped organize this letter signed by 36 Black alumni that reads, "We are writing to urge you to stop this infantile behavior and lead our alma mater with dignity." A total of nearly 40,000 others have also signed on. 12 days later, Falwell deleted the tweet saying, "I understand by tweeting an image to remind all of the governor's racist past, I actually refreshed the trauma that image caused and offended some by using the image to make a political point." For many, however, the damage was done, as several standout Black athletes like Asia Todd chose to transfer.
Due to the racial insensitivities shown within the leadership and culture, it simply does not align with my moral compass or personal convictions.
And in this cancel culture environment, Maura fears the damage isn't over.
If we keep down this road as a university, then we could be looking at people canceling us and forfeiting even playing sports with us.
In the midst of the turmoil, alumnus Laquan McLaurin stepped down as Director of Diversity Retention, a move he says was out of frustration when it became clear the university was unwilling to address Falwell's tweet or the racial justice debate.
It was a lot of just ignore it and it'll go away.
He's launched his own underground railroad of sorts to help other Black employees line up new jobs so they too can leave. Falwell declined CBN's request for an interview, but recently told Sebastian Gorka he's passionate about reuniting Black and white conservative evangelical Christians.
That's the only way that the establishment Republicans and the left has been able to keep power in this country is by dividing those two groups. And so, by God, I made it my passion that Liberty University is going to be the institution that brings those two groups back together.
Despite the controversy, the school is experiencing record enrollment online and expects to be full on campus this fall, reporting 27% of its student body is Black. Alumni I spoke with and many others, however, say they'll no longer recommend Liberty to students in their churches and communities. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News.
Coming up, a huge fight against religious persecution in one small European nation where Christians are having to defend their faith and Christian heritage. Stay with us.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
It's what starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Welcome back. Religious persecution does not just happen in places like China, North Korea, and Iran. Tensions are also running high in the small Balkan nation of Montenegro because of a controversial new law aimed at churches. George Thomas reports it's led to widespread protests and detention of some of the country's most prominent Christian leaders.
11 countries in this corner of southeastern Europe make up what's known as the Balkans. Among them, the tiny nation of Montenegro, home to some 600,000 people. For months, thousands of protesters, led by Serbian Orthodox Church leaders, have marched in cities across the country, protesting a law they claim allows the government to seize churches and other religious sites.
Those protests are interesting because they're happening as a prayer walks, and they're unique. They're also celebrating the Christian faith here in Montenegro.
Legal counsel for the church, Vladimir Loposavic, spoke with CBN News from Montenegro's capital city. He fears the law is a pretext to steal their properties, which include hundreds of medieval churches and ancient monasteries that dot the landscape.
In other words, it means that the government is going to try to rob the church, which means to jeopardize its own survival of the church itself.
The law, enacted in January, states that churches must provide proof of property ownership from before 1918 or risk their assets being taken by the government. Leposavic fears such a move might suppress Serbian Orthodox Christians from living in Montenegro and further restrict religious freedom.
The government claims that the churches and the temples supposedly do not belong to the church itself.
That's led to widespread protests, including clashes with police and repeated detention of those opposing the law, including Orthodox leaders and politicians. Since its independence in 2006, Montenegro's government has fostered closer ties with the West. A NATO member, it's now negotiating to join the European Union. Yet Montenegrins remain divided on whether to foster closer relations with Serbia and Russia or the West. For now, despite government restrictions on public gatherings due to the coronavirus, protesters continue to join church rallies across the country, demanding the government abandon its controversial religion law. George Thomas, CBN News.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
Administering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to CBNNewsChannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Welcome back. It's Friday, and our sports director, Sean Brown, joins us now to talk sports. So some big news on a huge contract for Patrick Mahomes with the Kansas City Chiefs. We're talking $503 million. Tell us about it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hey, look, man, there's a lot of sports news. Of course, at the top of the list, you've got the Redskins name change, which is going to be Warriors, Red Tails, Red Wolves. But the other big news in sports right now is Patrick Mahomes' contract, $503 million over 10 years, and that's including incentives. What it does is it communicates to this young player, hey, we trust you, we want you, we're investing in you, we believe that you are great for this franchise. It is a great, it's a win-win for both teams. And, you know, it's the beauty of it is hey, man, the communication between the franchise, the organization, and this player saying, hey, we want you for the long haul. There's no trust issues there. It's a great gesture, the biggest sports contract in sports history in the NFL when you include the incentives. Second was, I believe it was Russell Wilson with $35 million. And so very, very exciting. It doesn't guarantee Super Bowls. There's a lot of pieces that need to come together. But, boy, they have positioned themselves to win. It's a great thing to see.
So you mentioned Russell Wilson. Where does this fall in comparison to others in professional sports?
It is the highest contract. We're talking about roughly $45 million a year with $141 guaranteed if he gets injured or anything like that. And so it definitely is a win-win across the board. I was talking with one of the Denver Broncos a couple of days ago, Dalton Reisner, and he said, look, you know, it's great for 10 years right now, but in 5 to 8 years, that might change because the league is constantly, you know, raised the how much they pay quarterbacks goes up, you know, every 2 to 3 years, maybe next year. And so 10 years from now, $45 million a year, somebody's going to be getting paid $55 million a year. You know what I'm saying? And so it's going to continue to grow. But right now, it's pretty incredible.
All right. So switching gears here, tell us about the Special Encounter Conference sponsored by the New Orleans Saints linebacker, Demario Davis.
Oh, man. He partnered up with one of his high school buddies, his high school friends, and Joy Bradford. And his charity is the Devoted Dreamers Foundation. And so they got together to create this encounter. Just take a listen to this clip and how they describe it.
Our goal was to create something that where people could have a real encounter with God. And we know that it can happen anywhere, but it really happens in places where the spirit is really stirred up, you know, with intense worship and intense fellowship, but also the word going forth in truth, coming straight from the Bible, the gospel being presented unapologetically. That's what real encounter happens. What we want to do is create people to have that Paul in the Bible having that encounter with Jesus being knocked off his mule, to have an encounter with Christ, which radically transformed the trajectory of his life. And we want everybody to have that radical encounter with God where they can mark the moment where this is where I encountered God and this is how it changed my life.
A relationship with God is what brings change in a person's heart, and that's when they really know who God is and how he can how he influences every area, every decision of their lives. And so that's what we wanted to do, was create an encounter where lives would really change and people went from traditional church-going type situations to relational, real growth and transformations taking place.
Wow. You know, so there you see a clip, their heart, sharing their heart, the importance of doing this. It's normally in Brandon, Mississippi, but they're doing it virtual, and everybody can tune in. If you go to the Devoted Dreamers Foundation on Facebook, you can go to Demario Davis's social media. They're going to stream it live tomorrow night, I believe it's 7. And so it's going to be fantastic. Todd Delaney is going to be doing some worship there.
Nice.
Dude's fantastic voice. Mm-hmm. So be sure to check in for that. They're giving away prizes if you register at the Devoted Dreamers Foundation on Facebook, man. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be awesome.
I'm looking forward to that as well, Sean Brown. Thank you so much. Much appreciate your time.
You got it, brother.
Coming up, Lauren.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Efrem Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5 Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Christian music artist Lauren Daigle recently appeared on The Kelly Clarkson Show and says the song Rescue, a very personal song, ended up meaning a lot to her fans.
I don't know if this has ever happened to you, where you write a song, but it's almost like the song writes you before you write it. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like, you, especially for times right now, like especially with what's going on, it's like that song couldn't have been more real and more potent for such a time as this.
Daigle says she wrote that song for a friend in a time of need, and ended up performing it on the show. That said, we want to leave you with a look at the video of Rescue, and we hope that it encourages you. Happy Friday, and make it a wonderful weekend.